Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. It is June 24th, Monday, the start of a new week. We'll be breaking down what we got going on for the week. But first, I'll be doing a webinar. I'll be doing a webinar tomorrow, fully live, for anyone that wants to join. I'm going to be talking about unlocking consistency psychology and trading for long-term success in a trading masterclass. I know you might not be able to see it from my head over here, but you guys can check it out, right? The link's going to be in the description below for the sign up. I'm going to be breaking down a lot of different things, predominantly in terms of trading edges and strategies and understanding how to honestly go about your trading from a very calculated approach, so you don't have these crazy outbursts, right? Multiple steps to actually quote unquote fixing your trading for the longer term. So you guys can check that out. It's going to be tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. If you do have any questions, drop some comments down below. But this is 100% just open webinar that you guys can come and join, check out, and come chat with me realistically. So again, I'll be talking about this tomorrow, but you can get a breakdown of what's going on throughout this webinar down below here. Right, I'll be talking about why traders fail, creating consistency, talking about trading edges and psychology, which is more important, and how to develop these. And then we'll be talking about a 5-week guide to actually changing your trading forever. Now, this isn't the magic crystal ball. Let's just throw some powder on this. I'm going to be giving you some hard-learned lessons from myself that require a lot of mental fortitude and being able to disciplinarily go through these steps and areas to actually change your trading. So it's not any quick, easy tip. It's going to take a lot of effort, but I'll be breaking down a lot of anecdotal aspects from things that I've learned, how you can actually just completely flip your trading and get into more of a path of consistency, whether you're in a downturn or whether you're just trying to get to break even, right? These are things that are going to help you out. So remember, tomorrow 4 p.m. Eastern time, you can sign up. The link's going to be down in the description at some point of this video. Now, let's dive into what we got going on for the day. It is June 24th, Monday, and it's the start of the week. It's the start of a full week, because next week we've got Independence Day in the States, July 4th, so that's going to cut the week into tiny little bits. I don't even think that I'm going to be trading at all next week, because the markets start closing at Wednesday, midday on Wednesday, so just destroyed. So lower volume expected. Everyone, big traders and big boys with the volume are going to be in the Hamptons. They're not going to be giving two shits about this market, so it's going to be a tough one next week to try and battle this low volume and low volatility, one thing to mention. So let's dive in, right? I've titled this "Sell Signal Has Been Triggered," and I've seen a few sell signals on the market internals over the last week that I'm going to look into and address. Now, one of the things to understand about this is that I don't think that this is a sell signal that completely topples the market. I think this is a sell signal that pulls us back about 5% over the coming weeks. Something like that, before we get a pop, a lower high, and then a continued move. Summer seasonality generally starts to beget some kind of weakness in these markets, and I think that there are still dip buyers, but at lower prices, that we want to explore and find out where these guys are sitting. Now, I'm not saying that this week we completely nuke prices, but I'm saying that this week I would like to start the week with a bit more weakness to find some better buyers at lower prices to try to swing this thing back up. Statistically speaking, at some point this week, we're most likely going to find some kind of bottom where prices flip back up for the following few weeks and try to make a new all-time high. So that's what I'm going to be hunting. So there have been some interesting sell signals, not only on a breadth perspective, not only on equally weighted averages, not only on a bunch of volatility gauges, but one of the main things that I've been looking at is SMH, the NVIDIA, right? SMH is the semiconductor index. I look at NVIDIA, Apple, right? A lot of different big tech names that have been leading the charge, NVIDIA being the heaviest market cap last week into seeing a lot of downside press. If these guys start losing ground, especially under this 256 marker on SMH, and NVIDIA starts toppling under 120, 122, we're going to start to see some decent weakness in these markets where tech starts to get pulled out of, right? And markets are going, or I guess large money and managers are going to start taking money out of big tech, solidifying some gains, rebalancing, especially after OPEX, that kind of seasonal weakness, and putting things into more boring names, boring assets, and small caps, which is going to lead some upside in IWM, DIA, things like commodities, oil, and then downside in tech, SPY, triple Qs, and so on. So that's what I'm going to be looking for to start this week, seeing if these guys actually want to topple over a little more. We're getting a triple D period of volume profiles across the board of many different things, and the general understanding behind that is that we don't necessarily break down from something that creates multiple distributions higher and higher. Rather, we find buyers in the midpoint of that area, which is why I'm a little bearish to start the week, but not necessarily fully just sell everything, sell everything. I think there's going to be some kind of buy pressure that accumulates at some point this week for the next few weeks. So there's a lot of things to notice here, right, in terms of big tech that's starting to lose a little bit of ground. If you take a look at the sectors from the last week or so, XLK has been pulling down a little more in comparison to what it's been doing over the last month. It's been one of the bigger losers in terms of the sectors. Now, with Apple as well, Apple had a multi-day upside run over the last bit here, and we're starting to see it topple over. There's a lot more pressure being put on Apple after being accused of violating the EU tech rules. The iPhone maker is reportedly in discussion with Meta on a partnership involving the integration of the Facebook Parrot generative AI model into Apple Intelligence, and it could help companies play catch up in the AI race. With Apple already working to onboard a variety of generative AI offerings, like the integration of OpenAI's ChatGPT. And speaking of AI partnerships, TikTok's owner BitDance is collaborating with Broadcom AVGO on an advanced AI chip with the aim of securing a stable supply amid the rising Sino-US trade tensions. Now, AVGO is one of the names that, after its earnings period, right, is toppling over a bit, but still gapped up super aggressively. That's why it's very important to take a look at the SMH ETF here, right? It has a very strong influence on the SPY, and if this thing actually topples over significantly, I do expect more weakness in the SPY. Now, some of the other news events that have been coming out over the past week or so. The Intercontinental Exchange, or ICE, which operates the New York Stock Exchange, is planning to seek regulatory approval to clear U.S. Treasuries through its existing clearinghouse, ICE Clear Credit. Right? Discussions. ICE also has a publicly traded ticker. That is one of my favorites, honestly. MSCI. I'm getting a little tongue twisted here. And ICE, I like. S&P Global, right? I do like those for the longer term, and CME even. So, discussions are ongoing with the SEC as the company prepares its application for review. We are trying to be the least disruptive as possible by using an entity that is familiar and has the right registration, said Chris Edmonds, president of Fixed Income and Data Services at ICE. Other companies that have shown interest in offering central clearing services in the wake of the SEC's new rule, including the London Stock Exchange and CME. So there's some other news around these things as well, right? Like there's tobacco news that I'm going to be talking about too, because one of my favorite names, Altria MO, is in the midst of these talks. So another thing about tariffs, right? Looking to avoid escalating trade conflicts, China and the European Union have agreed to hold talks over the latter anti-subsidy investigation of China electric vehicles. Observers have reportedly said that Beijing wants the EU to scrape the tariff decision before July 4th, warning that an increasingly protectionist movement will definitely trigger countermeasures from the Chinese side. The bloc's proposed EV tariff of up to 38.1% will go into effect next month and are expected to be finalized on November 2nd. Note that 100% duties are imposed on Chinese EVs in the US, while Canada is set to consider similar measures. That was very interesting to me because BID, the Chinese EV, is a main sponsor at the Euro Cup in Germany. Now let's talk about tobacco here as well. MO has been doing fairly solid in recent weeks, but it's at the front line of some of these most recent talks here. Right, the FDA has authorized the marketing of first non-tobacco flavored e-cigarette products in the U.S., a move that has activists, health advocates, lobbyists, and investors all weighing in on the matter. Developments in the tobacco industry have been tense for decades and have renewed in recent years surrounding next-generation products. The latest endorsement from the FDA will apply 4 menthol vaping products from Enjoy, owned by Altria, MO, which is known for brands like Marlboro, Parliament, Virginia Slims, under the subsidiary of Philip Morris USA. So we are data driven. We are a data driven agency, and will continue to follow the science to inform our review of pre-market tobacco applications, said Matthew Fairley, director at the Office of Science in the FDA Center for Tobacco Products. And based upon our rigorous scientific review, in this instance, the strength of evidence of benefits to adult smokers from completely switching to less harmful products was sufficient to outweigh the risks of the youth. So flavored e-cigarettes include those with menthol, which were previously banned in the U.S. in 2020 amid a surge of using vape among youth and young adults, and their popularity has eased since then. But about 10% of the high school age adolescents and nearly 5% of middle school students still use vape products, according to the CDC. Many flavored items also remain available for purchase due to loopholes and a flood of illegal imports, which is very common here in the EU actually, and lack of enforcement, all while the FDA reviews the myriad of applicants. Now, on the company's last earnings call for Altria, CEO Billy Gifford said that the company saw continued early momentum of Enjoy, and would continue the rollout of Enjoy's first retail trade program and expand the brand to 100,000 stores by the end of the year. And the pivot towards alternative products saw Altria scoop up Enjoy for about $2.75 billion after its $13 billion stake in Juul went sour, and eventually prompted a divestment due to lawsuits and liabilities surrounding underage vaping. Now, listen, I'm not an advocate of just like, oh, this is it's the most ethical stock to be long, but I do like Altria because it serves a very nice dividend, and realistically, I don't necessarily see tobacco use or smoking of any sort dying out over the next like 10 plus years realistically. So I'm not saying this is the most ethical investment, but it's one of my favorites for a myriad of different reasons, right? One of the main being that it offers about an 8% annual dividend, right? So I do like it, right? That to each his own. But this news is fairly solid for Altria, the conglomerate, if you will, in the space. Now, let's dive into these equities. We'll take a look at the S&P 500 here in terms of the volume profiles, and we'll open up our live trading room for our traders to start out the week. So, last week we were looking at the 42-44 distribution pivot on the S&P 500 futures, and it held very well throughout the day, and we saw some downside momentum. Today, as things stand, right, we've got some shorts running from the overnight session into those 44s yet again, and I'll be looking for that 55, 15, 17, and 55.08, 10 area here on the SPOOs, on the futures, to find some kind of a buy side as we're coming into the middle band of this triple distribution, where I expect to see some kind of buyers positioned at lower prices somewhere down here. So even though I'm immediately bearish on this, I'm starting off the week bearish, I am looking for prices to see a downside press and then get followed up by some kind of bidding, whether it's today or tomorrow, leading into the latter portion of the week where we can find some kind of a stronger bid. Now, keep in mind we have the PCE data, which is the Fed's favored inflation gauge that comes out Friday pre-market. So that's going to be a big market mover. So if there's going to be some kind of a downside momentum in prices, I think that the sellers will want to do that before that data comes out, because inflation data has been running fairly well recently. So I'm going to be looking for something like that to start the week off, looking for some of that downside momentum, looking for some buyers to step in at lower prices. But until that happens, right, especially under this like 28, if we can actually hold an offer on the SPOOs, I'm going to be looking for some of that downside press. I got the inside scoop on vaping. Are we back? Is vaping back? It's insanely like popular, just smoking in general, I guess, in the EU, but like, I don't know. I was at dinner yesterday, and like in Bulgaria, you're allowed to smoke inside, and like more than half the table, it was just like me and one other person that didn't smoke at that table, like cigarettes, and like I wasn't smoking any vape, like I was smoking nothing, and it was just like bah, 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 bah. Like whether it's like a cigarette in your mouth or like a vape, it's just like going like crazy. I'm like, geez, just give the lungs a rest a little. But I don't think these things are going anywhere anytime soon, realistically, based on things that I've seen, especially like in the US, the popularity amongst the youth in vaping, which is not a great thing, but I like the stock. Anyways, remember, tomorrow, what I'll be doing is I'll be going live. We'll have our webinar in the afternoon. And let's open up our live trading. You can check us out at community.tradeproacademy.com. And I'll see you guys in there. Let's open up our live trading for our traders and trade some futures this morning. So thank you, everyone. We'll do this again tomorrow. A little longer update than usual.